and there is this game turn sequence of play, and this can lead you of what to do and not to forget things. And I'm going to take it slow right here in the beginning, the first year, and show you exactly how things work, and then I will pick it up and just start showing the gameplay. So the first thing you can see the determination of initiative. That has to do with whoever has the most BRPs in the beginning of the year goes first. In the beginning of the game here, it's the Germans and the Italians. They will move collectively together because basically they're their allies, even though they're not technically allies yet. The next thing you do is research die rolls.
Now you can see I put one in military and I wrote roll next to it to remind me to roll for it. Because remember, in research, you can only roll for one item in each of your 5 categories per turn. But I'm not going to roll for military right now. I'm going to save this RP and roll for it next year in 1940.
Very general, but I'm not rolling for that one. I save it and I roll for covert. Because remember, in the beginning here, I want to try to defend Poland, Belgium, Romania from the Allies diplomatically changing their status. So I want to be able to conduct covert operations in those countries. So I'm going to roll. You see, I put 2 in there, and I'll roll for it. So there's a 6 for covert. So you can see the covert operation results here. I put 2 in there, and I rolled a 6. 2 plus 6 is an 8. And you can see here, if you rolled a 7 or more, you can negate 2 enemy DPs. So I do have covert operations twice. And that's only good for, 1939, so these 2 turns. The Allies, they want to roll for French Anglo cooperation. They put 3 in there. I always use the white dice for the Allies. So here's their roll, and their roll is a 3. So in the Anglo-French cooperation, I rolled a 3, and I put 3 RP points in there, so that's a total of a 6. So and it says, in addition to a 4 or 5 result, Anglo-French stacking a combat restrictions relating to ground and air units are lift it at the start of the next allied player turn. So not this turn, but the next turn, no stacking restrictions. Now it says addition to a 4 or 5. That means hex restrictions in France and British and French colonies are lifted at the start of the next allied player turn. So the British have no more hex restrictions in France and their colonies, and they can stack together with their ground and air, and that's all we're asking for.
Now we move to the Russian RPs, and for them we put 1 into military. And so I will start 1 in military general category, because sort of like the Germans, I'm going to be doing most of my stuff in military, so I'd like to get a general +1 for everything. But I save it, I won't roll the next turn. And we would like to get the Romanians either on the Russian side or at least against the Germans. That would be a great help to the Russians and a pretty good blow to the Germans. So I always try subversion. Now if I miss subversion, the Germans will get Romania easier, but oh well, I can deal with that. I think it's worth the risk. So we put the 2 in subversion, and let's go look at what needs to be done in the research table. So the die roll is a 3. So when we look at the research table, 3 plus the 2 RPs we put in it is a 5. 5 says Russia may subvert any one of Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Greece, provided the target is not currently associated with or allied to any major power, which Romania isn't in the beginning. And the reason they pick Romania is because even though Russia can subvert these, there's another rule that states you have to be adjacent to the target. So Romania is the perfect one to do it to. Now, unfortunately, all we got was the 5, and the 5 says all you can do is take the minor country and move it to a neutrality status. See, if we would have got a 6 or a 7, we could have got Romania on our side. So just for this game instance, even though the Russian subversion attempt failed, let's say we rolled on this subversion table not a 3, let's say we rolled a 5 plus 2 is a 7, and the Russians are able to gain Romania as an ally. The next step we do is during the diplomatic phase, we see if Romania becomes a Russian ally. So in the diplomatic phase, which would come next, we see what countries had put diplomatic points in Romania. Well, this is the Germans. The Germans put 1 diplomatic point in Romania to defend it against such subversions and diplomatic changes by the Allies. So let's see what anybody else put in Romania. So this is the Allied and Russian diplomatic sheet. And the Allies put none in Romania, and the Russians put 1 in Romania. That's why it says 1 Russian diplomatic point. Now you're allowed to use covert operations for this. So the Germans have 2, and they will use them both right here. They don't want Romania going over to the Russian side. So the Russians have 2 DPs because that 1 is doubled, and the covert operations from the Germans takes them both away. So that leaves the Germans with a 1. Now for subversion, the Russians will get to roll a dice, and you have to get a 1 or less, while the Germans get to add 1 to it. Therefore, the Russians will not be able to succeed in the subversion at all. So you can see what the Russians have to do. First, they have to get the research die roll, then they have to get the diplomatic die roll. And it can be done. I would say it's probably a 40% chance that the Russians can't succeed at this. That's why I try it. So, but we already know the Russians only rolled a 3 first, and it failed, but I just took you through the procedure anyways. So that is it for the Russian research point phase. And let's move to the Japanese.
But let's move to the Japanese research. Now the Japanese, if you recall, they put 2 in the force pull military, and they're going to roll for it. They put 1 in Chinese occupation, which they're going to save. So let's roll a dice and add 2 to it for force pull infantry. And their roll is a 3. So under military projects, you have force pull infantry. See, it says Germany, US, Russia, and Japan. So we go with Japan, and they rolled a 3. That 3 plus the 2 research points we put in, it moves it up to a 5. So now they have a +3 result for the next time they roll for it. And the next time would be in 1940. Remember, you can only roll for 1 project a year. But we will mark the result, and I will show you where. Research results for 1939. Remember, the Germans got covert. They got 2 and 39. You're just marking down what happened. The Japanese infantry that they put it in, they had a +3 result. Now, when the year ends, we fill out another research record that will allow us to carry over this +3, or you carry over any saved research points that you did not use, and I'll show you that sheet in the year start sequence. But right now, you just record the results on your result sheets. Okay, this is the Axis result sheet. Kind of separating the Germans from the Japanese. The Germans are on top there, the Japanese are on the bottom. But if you want, you just make copies for each player. Okay, so that is the research points phase.
So the next phase we move to is the diplomatic phase. You can see here, this is the Allied sheet. The Allies had a total of 5. They put 2 into Poland, and they put 3 in Belgium. This is what I would do as the Allies, because with the Anglo-French cooperation and Belgium on your side, it's going to be very tough for the Germans. So you can see the Russians now, they had 2. They put 1 in Romania, 1 in Russia. We already covered Romania. Remember, their original subversion die roll failed, so they didn't even get to subvert it. The Germans, this is the German sheet, they put one in Poland. It's just to defend against the Allies trying to do anything. They put one in Romania to defend against that. And they put one into Belgium to defend against that. And they put one into Denmark. And I'll explain why we do that one. So they have a total of 5 DPs. That's 4. One more goes in the United States. So in the diplomatic phase, the Germans and Italians have the initiative. They choose first. They don't choose anything. Remember, they're just defending. If they pick something, they can't use their covert operations. So they're not picking nothing. So the Allies' turn. The British and French choose Poland. They want to see if they can make it real hard for the Germans on Poland. So with Poland being chosen, you see how many the Allies put in. Remember, they put 2, and you see how many the Germans put in, and the Germans put 1. So it is actually a +1 to the Allies. So when they roll, they're going to add 1 to their dice. So let's go ahead and make the die roll.
And they got a 4, and they get to move it 1 in their direction. Now, if you go to the diplomatic sheet, the diplomatic book looks like this. Okay. And as you can see, it tells you certain rules about it. And they want to move it down in their favor. So off the 4 dice roll that they roll, they get to move it 1 to a 3. And what does 3 say? If you look down the side, it says 2 through 5, no effect. So nothing happens for Poland.
Now remember, the Germans had 2 covert operations. And if the Allies would have put 3 in there, I would have used some covert operation against them to take that down. But since they only used 2 and I had 1 DP and they only were going to get to subtract 1 off their die, I can deal with that result that comes up. So I just let them roll, and they ended up missing. So it is the Russians' turn, and they can pick, and the Russians are not going to pick anything. They put 1 in their own country, and you're not allowed to pick Russia in 39, but they put it there just in case there's a reaction die roll, and I'll explain that one later. And then they put the 1 in Romania, and they're not going to pick that one. So that is the end of the 1939 diplomatic phase for the fall turn.
So you can see we don't need to do number 2, C1, C2, C3. The Americans draw magic counters. You don't do that until the Japanese Americans go to war. So you go to the first player turn, D, and that would be Germany. You add any BRPs for minor allies, negative. You do increase the US BRP level. In this game, the US BRP level increases by 10. Its base and its total increases by 10 in the European side and the Pacific side. So, in the European side, they have 150 points they start the game with. That base will now go up to 160, including its total will go up to 160. So we will increase the Americans to 160. In the Pacific, they start with 75. Their base will now go up to 85, and their total goes up to 85. And I'll explain that base when we get to year start sequences. Okay, so after increased US BRP level, you have declarations of war. And it's the Germans and Italians' turn. And the Germans get a free declaration of war in Poland. They're already at war when the game starts. And then we declare war on Denmark. Now we look at the diplomatic book for Denmark. Because in Denmark, we put 1 diplomatic point. And you go to Denmark, and it says resolve when Germany declares war on Denmark, whether or not you put any diplomatic points in there. But you get to double both the Axis and Allied diplomatic points. The Axis put 1, it doubles to a 2. You roll the dice, and it's a 3. You move it in the Axis favor, so that 3 becomes a 5. Well, 3 or more, it says it Denmark does not resist German occupation. No Danish units deploy, and all Danish units are deemed to have been controlled by Germany from the start of the Axis player turn. Germany may operate air units out of Copenhagen and construct and use an air base in any Danish hex during the turn of invasion. Okay, so with the declaration of war, it cost them 10 BRPs. So they have 150, they go down to 140. Okay, so it's at 140. So, and then you don't have to do 3B, 4 option selections. The options selected, well, the Germans are given a free offensive option here on the Eastern Front. Now the fronts are divided by this red line. You see this red line going down the board right there? Okay, it cuts over here by Romania. You see the red line? Well, everything on the east side of that, okay, everything on the east side of that red line is the Eastern Front. Any operations you're conducting over there, offensive operation, costs you money. If you conduct operations on this side of the line, it's the Western Front, and you have to pay for operations there. Any operations conducted on the southern part of this line to the south is the Mediterranean Front, and you have to pay for operations there. So right now, the Germans get a free offensive option on the Eastern Front that's given to them in the game. In the Western Front, they're going to take an attrition option, and attrition options cost no money. Now, you're allowed to do any counter errors right now in the movement phase and in the combat phase. Counter error is when you send your planes out and you counter error any enemy planes. And I suggest you try to do this each and every time if you're in range. So right here, the Poles can't set up anywhere but there. Wherever they set up, the German planes can reach them. So they have 2 aircraft there. The Germans will fly out their 2-4 and meet the Polish planes in the air. And we will roll the dice for that counter air. Remember, the white dice is Allies. Okay. The Allies got a 4, the Poles rolled a 4, the Germans a 2. So with this, you have to now apply the Air Force national modifiers because, you know, some people are have better planes and better fighter pilots. So the Germans remain at 0 modifier, so they remain at a 2, but the Poles have to subtract 2, so they go down to a 2. So it's actually a tie. Whoever rolls highest on the die roll wins air battles. So now that it's a tie, you pick up the dice, and whatever you roll, that's how many planes both of you are losing. And we just rolled a 3, so 3 planes are dead off the Poles, and 3 are dead off the Germans. They only have 2 each, so all planes died. So you take the German dead, you put it in the force pool. And the Poles really don't matter. Right now, the Allies are very happy. They just destroyed 2 German planes at 3 each. That's 6 BRPs. They just ate off the Germans. Now the Germans finish their move. Take this tank, and they move 1, 2, and another one for 3 to go on top of the pole. The only reason they're going on top of the pole, Polish Corps, is because they're going to overrun it. You have to get 6-to-1 odds to make an overrun. The Germans have 4. The infantry goes with it. So the infantry goes 1, 2, and 1 more to overrun is 3. So he reaches because their movement is 3. They have a 7 there. Well, a 7 is not 6-to-1 on the Poles. The Poles' defense is a 1, but when you're on defense, you double it to a 2. So he actually has a defense of 2. To get 6-to-1 on that, is 6 times 2 is a 12. So you need 12 factors. That tank is a 4, and that infantry is a 3. That's 7. You have to put in some more. So you fly over of 5 air wing. Now you have a 12 on that hex. The overrun is complete. The Polish corps is dead. Now the Germans have to roll. If they get a 1, they have to lose something. So here goes their roll. And their roll is a 1. They lose a German 3-3. So you take that German 3-3, you put it in the force pool there. Now the Germans have just lost 9 BRPs attacking Poland. So the battle is not going that well. The German plane that just attacked, it flies back 4 or to its base, but it can go up to 4, and you turn it over. That means it is spent. When we use the term spent, it means it is done for this entire round. When everybody takes at least 1 turn, that plane is done. So you turn it over. Now, the Polish is dead. Okay. Now, the reason I leave a 3-3 here is just in case I lose that overrun or I lose some men. So now this 3-3 walks up with the tank. So I have 2 guys there. That's the maximum you can have in a hex, is 2 pieces, unless the other piece is an airborne or a Marine or a paratrooper. So this 3-3 infantry German goes 1, 2 to there. I take this tank from here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I take these 2 tanks, 3, 4, 5, and they go next to them, and I move these planes up. One goes now you're allowed to place 1 air base on the board. We will go ahead and place one right here because I want to shift my airplanes this way. So we have to get them all based there to help attack. Okay, so I just moved all my planes up, all my units into position. Okay, the other 3-3 is right here too. We put 2 3-3s on that hex. And what you do is you walk this 3-3 in with the other 3-3. We're going to attack the Polish hex right here. We count our units. We have 7 there. The tank is 4, the infantry is 3. That's 7. Then I have 2 infantry at 3 there and 3 there. That's 6 more. That's 13. He has a defense of a 2. We're just going to take the poles out of the way to show you. 2 and 1 is a 3. You get to double that to a 6. 2 to 1 odds. I need 12 and I have a 13. So I'm going to roll at 2 to 1 odds. And I just rolled a 2. At 2 to 1 odds, if you look at our table, at 2 to 1 odds you rolled a 2. It's a counterattack at 1 to 2. So the Allies get to counterattack, and they roll a 6. So if you look on the 6, at 1 to 2 it says attacker dies. In this case, since the Poles are counterattacking, they become the attacker. And so their force is eliminated. So with that space eliminated, I now advance into it. I'm only going to advance into it with 1 piece. And I'll tell you why. All these exploding armor get to go on top of that breakthrough hex now. But now you cannot overstack unless, remember what I said, it was a paratrooper, a Marine, or exploding armor on a breakthrough hex. You're allowed to overstack and attack out of that hex. But once the attack's done, you can't be overstacked. That's why we only move 1 unit there, because 2 units will advance out, and then 2 units can stay right here. You can always have 2. When the attack's over, you got to have 2 on a hex. So there's 2 there, and if I win this battle, those 2 go there. I throw the rest of my planes I have in here. I put this 5 there, I put this 5 there, and I put this 3 here. So I have now, I'm just going to count them. So I got 4 attacking, 4 attacking, 4 attacking. Now remember, these two created the breakthrough hex. So these two are not allowed to attack anymore. Only the ones that were exploiting, that were adjacent to them attacking originally and moved up. So that's 4, 8, 12. 12 and 3 is 15, 20, 25. I got 25 factors attacking. How many poles? I got 4 poles. Doubled is an 8. 8 times 3 is 24. I have 3 to 1 odds on this attack. Now, any infantry units that are attacked by exploding armor get a -1 defense multiplier unless they're on a capital, and that is a capital. So, I don't get to get the -1 defense multiplier from them. So, the attack is 3 to 1. Let's roll the dice. And we have a 5. Okay, and on the 3 to 1 table, the combat results table, you go up to 3 to 1, and you go down to the 5, which is right there. It says D. That means defender eliminated. So, for the total Polish attack, the Germans lost that 2-4 plane and that 3 infantry. So it ended up not being as bad as it could have been. So once the battle's done, you fly the planes back home, and remember, they're inverted. You can land at any air base you own. You can't use any of these Polish air bases because you didn't control them at the beginning of the turn. To use any air base as your own, you have to control it at the beginning of the turn. So, with Warsaw conquered, the Poles do not get 1 turn to retake their capital, and they're all eliminated. And that concludes the combat phase on the Eastern Front. Over here we have the attrition phase. Let's roll. And we have a 3. You add up how many units you have next to the enemy units. You count their numbers. I have 3, 6, 9. I'm on the 9 table on the attrition. You go down here, see the attrition table, 1 through 10, and you go to 3, that's blank. That means I missed, nobody dies. So nothing happening there. The combat phase is over.
And we will move to the unit construction phase. Now, in the unit construction phase, you have these sheets. They're called the Global War Year Start Sequence Record Sheets. This is where you keep track of all your available resources, DPs, and RPs that you have for your country. So we will take a look at Germany. And according to the scenario booklet, the Germans' 1939 base is 150, so you fill it in there. And you bring it down to here, and 39 it's 150. Total BRPs for 39 is 150. And there's no strategic warfare, and your year start total is 150. The spending limit is half of what you start with, is 75. His diplomatic points were 3, and his research points were 5. And so since it's the unit construction phase, we are interested in looking at what their spending limit is, because you can only spend half of your total BRPs for the year. So their total BRPs was 150. Their spending limit is 75. They can only spend 75 BRPs a turn. And so far, the Germans have spent 10 BRPs on a declaration war of Denmark. So they have 65 BRPs they can build this turn. So when you look at the Germans' force pool and their BRP chart, it's down to 140. Because remember, they started the game with 150. They spent 10 on declaration war, so they have 140. So in the unit construction, we can build 65 more BRPs worth of stuff. And here's what I built. Now you can see the 2-4 I lost, so I bought it back, and we lost 1-3-3 infantry at the bottom here, so I bought it back. In addition to that, I bought another full air wing. That's a 5-4. I bought the paratrooper, 3-3, and then I bought 4 more 3-3 infantry, and then 2 tanks and a replacement. Well, there's a chart of how much everything costs. Basically, every factor costs you money. So let's take the replacement, for instance. That is 1 factor. It costs you 1 BRP. That paratrooper has 3 factors. Well, each factor on a paratrooper costs you 3 BRPs, so 3 times 3 is 9. That paratrooper costs you 9 BRPs. The tanks, each factor costs you 2, so that 4 tank times 2 is 8. That 1 tank costs you 8 BRPs. Now the air wings, you see the 5.4 air wing I just bought? Well, each factor of that costs 3 BRPs. So there's 5 factors there. 5 times 3 is 15. That air wing cost me 15 BRPs plus the 2.4 that I lost. 2 times 3 is 6. So that cost me 6 BRPs for the 2.4. So I bought a total of 7 aircraft times 3 for the BRPs of each factor. I spent 21 BRPs just on aircraft. You can see aircraft is expensive, but you need to have it. And then the 4 3.3 infantry there, each infantry factor worth 1 BRP. So I got 4 3s there. That's 12. So it cost me 12 BRPs. So that's the builds, and let's place them on the board.
And what we're doing is we place our German units. Remember, we had 3 right here. I put some more infantry here, 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 and here. Very important, you put 1 replacement that you build right here. That's because next turn I'm going to be moving this infantry off, and I don't want to leave this hex open for the French. Okay?
Now, while you're constructing your units and place them on the board, you can also do the SR phase sort of together. And the Germans get 9 SRs. So the air base here, I SR it up to Denmark, and the paratrooper I'm putting here, it also SRs up to Denmark on the air base. So I'll show you in a little bit the air base and the paratroopers up there in Denmark because they're going to get ready to invade Norway.
When you build airplanes, they're spent. You can't use them right away. So it goes upside down in Germany. This 5.4 goes upside down in Germany. I don't have an air base for the 2.4, so it's just going to have to go there.
And the German tanks I just put behind the front line on the west in case the French or the British try to get wise and take a turn flip-flop and try to invade me. You want a constant straight line of troops, preferably, and even have German tanks or anybody's tanks, whatever army you are, behind that front line. So preferably always 2 rows and backed up by tanks. That's the best, but right now it's not that big of a deal and we don't have that many troops. And now that all the units are down, I'm SRing the rest of my stuff. Remember, I've already used 2 SRs, and I'm going to SR all my tanks out of Poland over to the Western Front because we got to get ready to hit France. So that concludes the unit construction and SR for the Western Front. Now the Eastern Front is a little different because of the Russian modifier table.
This is the Russian diplomatic status. When you look at it, it says Russia may declare war on the Axis if Germany fails to maintain a garrison of at least 10 ground factors on the Eastern Front. Russia may declare war on the Baltic states, occupy Eastern Poland, demand Bessarabia and the Finnish border access. Otherwise, Russia remains neutral and discounts the possibility of a German attack. Russian infantry units and all types of hexes are subject to a -1 defense multiplier on the first turn of a German invasion. So that's the diplomatic status of Russia right now, and that's where we want to keep it. And remember, we have to have 10 ground factors there. I only have 6. That means I have to take a 3-3 back. And now it's only 9. I have to get one more in there. So here's how you play the game and you do things. You go, okay, this 2-4 I bought, I'm going to take it back to the pull and I'm going to exchange it for 2-1-4. So I'm taking 2-4 plane out and just putting 2 back in, but I'm separating them because I'm only going to buy 1 now. That means that only costed $3. Remember, I paid $6 for this 2-4, so now I'm only buying a 1 plane back out of it, costing me 3. I saved myself $3. $3 is going to get me 3 more replacements. And now with those 3 replacements, I put 1 right here on the eastern front. And there's 10 factors I have on the eastern front now. And then the other 2, I'll just fill the gaps. Okay, so the replacements fill the gap. Now let me go over a replacement. What a replacement is they're new recruits. They go through basic training and then they're rushed to the front. So they're not able to maneuver like the regular ground units. So they're not allowed to move once you place them down. The only way they can move is by a strategic redeployment. And they're not allowed to attack and be involved in any offensives. Basically, they're just there to defend your territory. And their defense is, guess what? A 1. So they're weak, but they do take up room. They take up spaces, so the enemy just can't walk right through there. So they're almost good as a 1-3 infantry, like the Polish had, except the Polish would be able to move around and attack. The replacement can't. And it can only be moved by the strategic redeployment. So that's the German turn for 1939. We succeeded in getting 2/3 of our goals for 39. Poland and Denmark. The only one left we want is Norway. The next turn is the Italians.